USC has hired former Arizona Cardinals head coach Kliff Kingsbury as a senior offensive analyst. And to dive more into this development, we're joined by our Antonio Morales. Antonio, Bruce Feldman and yourself wrote a great piece on The Athletic about what this all means. Do we have any information on what his role as a senior offensive analyst entails? I'm sure many are interested to know whether he'll be involved in play calling.
He won't be involved in play calling. That's still something Lincoln Riley's going to keep. Lincoln Riley's been doing it ever since he's became an offensive coordinator at East Carolina in 2010, I believe. He hasn't let go of those duties even when he became the head coach at Oklahoma. He's kept them at USC. Uh, he, Kliff Kingsbury won't even be one of the 10 full-time assistants on the staff. He's going to be an analyst. Um, there's been talk about how much he doesn't like recruiting in the past. He won't be really asked to do that much at USC, but it's more to kind of just be a great resource in the quarterback room and help out in that regard and help with game planning throughout the week and help with Caleb Williams and Miller Moss and Malachi Nelson, the three main guys in that position group right now. So it's not like, oh, he's going to have this huge hand in the offense and calling plays on Saturdays. It's still going to be Lincoln's thing, but he's going to be somebody to bounce ideas off of, and he'll have a fresh perspective just being an outsider to the program. And from hearing Lincoln talk on Tuesday night, I think Lincoln really values that Kliff Kingsbury is a former head coach, and he was talking about everyone thinks they know what it's like in that chair, but unless you do it, you don't really have a good idea of what it entails. And Kliff's somebody who's been in that chair in the NFL and at Texas Tech. So I think Lincoln values that as well.
You mentioned the quarterback room. What kind of impact does this hire have on them? What's the state of that position group?
Obviously, there's Caleb Williams at the top, Heisman Trophy winner, potential number one pick next year. He was asked about Kliff. He was asked a couple questions about Kliff on Tuesday, and he was saying like, yeah, it's going to be good to have him in the room. Just he knows Lincoln's offense. He's been in the NFL. He spent the past couple years in the NFL, and then someone asked him if Caleb has spoken to Kyler Murray about Kliff, and he kind of laughed. He was like, "The news just came out. I just kind of just liked the post and kept scrolling." He's like, "That's all it's been." So it's still gonna take some time for them to get to know Kliff. Obviously, Lincoln's in that room as well, so um, it's going to be just good development for those quarterbacks. And like I said earlier, a good resource for, especially for younger guys like Miller Moss, who was a 4-star prospect in the 2021 cycle, who was the backup for most of last year. And USC just brought in Malachi Nelson, who was a 5-star signee in this most recent recruiting cycle. So it's good for their development just to learn off someone like Kliff, who's been in the NFL and coached really, really good quarterbacks like Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, and Baker at one point. So um, I just think it's a good resource for them to have, just being young guys who are kind of inexperienced. And then obviously there's Caleb, who has aspirations for the NFL, and there's a former NFL head coach in the room now.
Now, this is technically Kingsbury's second stint at USC, but what does it mean for the Trojans this time around? Is Kingsbury in it for the long haul, or is this kind of just a stop along the way until he gets another either head coaching job or offensive coordinator job?
I think it's probably just another stop, but you never know because he was 10 months into a long extension with the Cardinals by the time he got fired. So it's not like there's a need for him to he needs to work to kind of offset the buyout stuff, but there's no need for him to like rush back into the coaching job market right away. When he came to USC the first time back in December 2018, like USC was kind of desperate. They really needed him. They just went through a 5-7 season, and it was embarrassing. And Clay Helton was just at the start of hot seat talk, so he needed someone to kind of take the pressure off him and revive the offense. And like when Kliff Kingsbury got hired, then that was like a huge deal, and people were like, "Oh, this is make or break. This is going to determine Clay Helton's status going forward." And when he left after a month, it was kind of embarrassing for the program. And then people were like, well, where does this leave USC now? And obviously now the program with Lincoln Riley, and it's on much more stable footing now. I wrote yesterday that he's a luxury item now, and in the past he was a necessity. And you see schools like Alabama and Georgia who have these former head coaches or these former NFL coaches who come in and stay as analysts. Sarkisian was an analyst at Alabama at the start. Lane, I don't think Lane was, but there was other people who kind of went through that cycle. And USC hasn't really had that in the past, and that's a program that's fallen on hard times for about 10 years. Lincoln kind of got things going in the right direction last year, and this time, this is a move that kind of signals like, okay, they're starting to act like a big boy program again.
Well, for more on USC, go check out and read Antonio on The Athletic, as well as follow him on Twitter at Antonio C. Morales. Antonio, thanks so much for your insight.
All right, thanks for having me.